everybody? It's your girl Mika, and you're watching the Red Cup Podcast, where truth, pop culture, and politics meet. What's up, everybody? It's your girl Mika, and we're back for another Red Cup Talks because this is where truth, pop culture, and politics meet. And today we know, okay, it's not a normal stream day for me. It's Friday. Normally, I don't stream on Friday, but I have a very, very, very important guest, okay? This gentleman, when I tell you he is killing it, he is killing it. All right. He has his own podcast that he's been doing for a little while, but he's been making waves on social media for the last year or so. Okay. But he's blowing up on YouTube as well. I want you guys to give a very, very, very big welcome to Jeff St. James, better known as Ask a Brother Podcast.
What up?
What's going on?
What's going on? How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
And I'm pretty sure everybody in the chat already knows who you are. However, to those that will be watching the replay or those that may not know you in the chat, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jeff St. James. I'm hail from Philly, and I'm a licensed professional therapist. And, I just joined the content space this year in particular. And seems like most times when I get behind a microphone, things happen. And then before you know, I either get in trouble or people love me. So, I'm happy to be here.
All right. So look, everybody in the chat, all my red cuppers, if you guys know who he is, make sure you're hitting the like button, you're sharing, because I want people to come in and listen to everything this man has to say, because there aren't a lot of people that I like to listen to. So I'm all in. So I want to start really with your background, right? So you said you're a licensed therapist. Now, from what I hear with men, okay, and this is just sometimes what I hear, they don't really like therapy. So how are you cutting through that? Like, how do men receive you as far as actually being open to therapy or being a male therapist?
Yeah, what you said is actually true. A lot of men actually do despise and hate therapy, and many of them actually base it off of I think previous experiences where they tried it, they went in for couples therapy, and they felt either forced, they felt like they weren't listened to, they felt like maybe women's perspectives were kind of more centered, and it wasn't really about getting his input. It was far more about kind of making sure the woman that wanted and initiated it, she felt heard and understood. And a lot of men felt like this just feels like a beat up session where I'm like a lot of men described it as almost a 2 against 1. And even when they were doing one-on-one sessions, they often felt like the therapist was trying to make them emote and communicate their emotions in a way that really wasn't natural. It was almost like they almost were treating men in the therapeutic environment as if they were broken women. So I think what's different with me is I know that. And I saw it, and I saw how much the field, even in the time from when I first started till about 2020, I saw a drastic change in the feminization of the field. And more, I was starting to lean in and saying something's wrong. And the store analogy I kind of use for a lot of times when people say what's wrong with men and why aren't they going to therapy and they need to get better with this. This is the equivalent of like owning a store. You're not selling the products, they're staying on the shelf, and then you're blaming the customers. That sounds crazy. No, you have to reevaluate why is it that people aren't showing up or buying what you're selling. So I, started doing a little investigation, looking at research and realizing that male-centered or more so male-tailored therapeutic approaches actually appeared to be significantly more effective. And then as I started doing more men's groups, working in men's prisons, I started to realize there's a whole nother way and approach to make sure men are understood, validated in that space. And then when I kind of started getting behind this microphone and talking about men's issues, I think a lot of men was like, yo, there's a therapist that actually know this and actually realize men's actual issues. And from there, I guess the rest was kind of history.
Yeah, you are hitting it on the nail because
Mm,
I've always heard that. I've always hear, yeah, I don't like couples therapy. I don't like going to this. And I
mhm.
think it is what you say. It's the whole, it's centered around what the woman feels. And
Yeah.
I want to ask this before we get into our topics. Do you find that as a therapist, a lot of men um don't really talk about their feelings, like, extensively? Like, do you
Mhm.
find that you can ask them a question about how they feel, and they might tell you one thing, but it's kinda hard for them to open up about it? Like, what has been your experience with that, with men and being
Mhm.
expressive?
Yes, that's half true that a lot of men don't open up. The half part is that a lot of them did at one point. A
Okay.
lot of them did open up with someone. A lot of them did open up to the woman in their life, and they often ended up regretting it. It got weaponized against them. It got brought back up in an unrelated like conversation, thrown back in their face,
I'm
right? So
sure.
a lot of men say that that's happened,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then number two, uh, I think people have this presupposition that just because you're asking a man to open up means that you're mentally, emotionally mature enough to know how to handle a man's problems and emotions. I think a lot of therapists aren't qualified to do it, let alone people who aren't trained to deal with this. So the reality is, men don't like talking about issues and problems that you can't actually fix or solve. And that's a big, big thing that I think a lot of therapists and particularly feminist leaning, um, gynocentric, fem centered uh, therapists tend to struggle with is they most men don't like continuously talking about the same thing and processing over and over. They view it more through the lens of, is there a means to an end? Like if I'm telling you this, it's
Yeah.
because I actually want you to understand me and help me, not just to understand me and keep talking about it. So they just have a much more linear approach with it.
Mhm.
And number two, a lot of men, although talking's great, action means a lot, equally as important for them as well. And that's why I think the therapists and life coaches that understand that, they tend to do much better with men than most other therapists, where it's just all about talk therapy. All it is about processing. All is it is about, looking at and analyzing your emotions in every way you can possibly imagine. Where it's like, well, if I gave him a couple different prescriptions, and some of it is about talking, but some of
Mhm.
it's about what's his actionable steps he's going to take, and what particular things he can start doing even now to kind of better his chances of feeling better and being better, a week or a month later.
Okay. So you made a good point. Well, you made a couple of good points. So, with that being said, I want to get into what or where do you see yourself in this space, right?
Mm,
We have the manosphere, the red pill, and
mhm,
we'll get further into that.
mhm,
But we have all of these different kind of labels and spaces that we have for men. Where do you fit in? And how do you think in a world full of, toxic masculinity, as some of the feminists like to say,
mhm,
or in a world full of men who are kind of like, pandering, kind of like Derek Jackson, you
mhm.
know, men like that. How do you fit in the equation? And do you, well, how do you think you cut through the noise? Like, how do you think you gotten so popular without being labeled one or the other? Because I see a lot
Mhm,
of women actually watch your stuff.
mhm.
So you've seen to garner an audience on the female side and the male side. So where do you think you fit in?
Yeah, I still think it's like 80-20 men to women. So I don't know if it's a lot of women that's watching as of yet. But a shout out to,
Mhm.
I see some of the ladies in the chat. I think I saw smell the roses. I saw a few people up in the
Oh,
chat
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure that I
uh-huh.
starting to recognize, for people that's been following me and supporting me up until this point. Mrs. Plum, shout out to you. So yeah, in terms of how I would place myself, I definitely agree with the red pill ideology, and framework of how to describe, um, how to view relationships in particular. Obviously, I think specifically when I'm talking about relationships, I think a lot of people view me as now a part of the manosphere. A lot of the people that's a part of the manosphere are brought on my channel. So those are the two buckets that I guess people could place me in, but I'm pretty all over the place with the guests that I bring on, things that I'm interested in. I'm not one of
Mhm.
these one issue voter or one issue topic content creator. I'm somebody who's just open to ideas, to learning, to asking questions we're not allowed to ask, think about things we're not allowed to think about, and making sure that my channel kind of presents that. And although I'm a therapist by trade, it doesn't mean I walk around as a therapist in all of my life. Like that's just one hat of many hats that I think I wear. And I think that all of us are a little bit more complex than just the one issue that everybody associates us with. So just because you play sports doesn't mean you can't be into philosophy. Just because you're into science can't mean you be into art. So like just because I'm a therapist doesn't mean, I can't think about all the things that's on the internet that we all think about and discuss. So yeah, I think that red pill manosphere, it makes sense in terms of how most people will see me. But like I said, I'm into a whole bunch of other subjects and topics like politics and different subgenres and stuff like that.
Okay. So you would say you fit in, but you
Mhm.
have your own lane.
Yeah, yeah. I think when I first started trending and going viral a couple times, I think the biggest issue was people were trying to say like, "Yo, the Kevin Samuels is back." Like he got it. He had his own
I
swag.
mean, it's a good comparison.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not at all offended
Yeah.
by it, but at the same time, he's his own man. I'm my own
Yes.
man, and he had
Yeah.
to make his own lane. There were people that came before him that he learned from and got some advice and feedback from, especially from the big three, from the black side of the manosphere. And
Mhm.
he learned, he grew, and he tried to figure out what worked for him. Even before he went viral, he was talking to men primarily.
I I tell women that all the time, right?
Hmm.
Especially, after, he passed, women would say, "Oh my God, you like Kevin Samuels?" And I would say, "Yeah, I love Kevin Samuels." I'm like, and did you know that he talked to men first? And
Hmm.
I mean, the way he talked to women, women thought it was, well, some women thought it was egregious. I'm like,
He had the
the
smoke for men.
men he talked to, there was one where he I can't say it, but what he said to the guy, I was just
Hmm.
like, man, he has to answer that. But men were, they were okay with it. It
Hmm.
seems like, and we talk about this a lot of the times in these type of spaces where there's a difference of receiving the information, right? You can tell a man most of the time, hey, you're fat. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, whether you want to do something about it or not, that's your business, right? But if you tell a woman that, it's like internalized, right? Like, okay, well, you
Yeah.
hate me because you think this about me. And so I think Kevin Samuels, did that, but he was able to, cut through. He
Hmm.
was able to cut through all of that. So as as a content creator, how are you, or do you even plan to start talking to women? Or do you just plan to just be neutral? Or do you specifically want to talk to men?
Um, so the big thing that I did do one call-in show so far. I do plan to do more, but I don't want to be boxed into that. Part of the reason is because I think when you have a particular agenda and focus and you're being intentional about your approach and your image, and not just my image, but the image of people that look like me on the internet, um, that kind of goes out the window when you just allow anyone and everyone to kind of come on your show and just start spewing whatever they want. So I do know that if I do that, I'll get more views, I'll get more followers. I know how to go viral. I know how to mess with the algorithm. I know who to pander to. I know who to attack. And I'm honestly just choosing not to do any of the above. I think my lens is much more about I'll use jokes and humor at times, but I think my approach is just slightly different, in a sense of like, if the end point and goal is just to be super well known, famous, everybody knows who I am, I'm either going to pander to women or I'm going to attack them, and that would be the
That's
lane.
bad.
Yeah, if you do either of those two things, if you tell women what they want to hear, or you're constantly shitting on, sorry,
No, you're good. You're good.
coming at them too crazy, I think like that's just reinforcing bubbles that people already operate in anyway. I think
Yeah.
and there's enough content and enough podcasters that to me that's already doing that. I think it's old. I think it's actually a little corny. And for people that actually operate in the real world, I think how I'm handling it is how most people, men and women, would actually receive it in real life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that doesn't mean that I can't have views that people may disagree with. I do.
Right.
And I'll stand on what I truly legitimately believe in on for sure. But that's just not
Yeah.
me. And
Most
and I
people in
yeah,
life are not polarizing, right?
yeah,
Or so
exactly.
extreme over here, so extreme over here. Because I even find that sometimes, when I'm either on here or if I'm on, uh other podcasts, or if I'm on with, Anton and things like that, people will, well, men will hear
Mhm.
me say something and it's just, all the way to the left. And
Yep.
it's just like you cannot operate like that every day. Like some things you have to deal with women about, right? Or you have to deal with men on, because
Mhm.
there are even women that I see that from, and it's just
Mhm.
absolutely asinine. I'm just like, why in the world are we this polarized? And like we have
Because it
to
gets
come
views.
together on some things.
It gets views, people
Yeah.
watch it, we're entertained by it, and at the end of the day, the people me and, Crimson Cure, when we were talking last night,
Mhm.
I asked her about this, about
Yeah.
why it is that people pander and do this. She said, "Because it produces money." Because
Okay.
they make money off of it. So they don't care about the long-term implications of what they're doing. They're looking at the short-term gains that they're making. If I got to shit on the right on a really famous well-off dude
Yeah.
that comes on my blesses my platform with coming in his environment just to shit on him and talk about how horrible of a father he is, or if I got to constantly shit on women or black women, like I can point out problems in individuals or any particular population group. That's the lane out. The truth is the truth,
Yeah.
but if that's kind of your marketing strategy, it's obviously all about short-term gain for yourself, and you're not thinking about the long-term consequences of another lost generation of people in our community who don't get along, who hate each other, and you're rich. In the end, like I just don't think that that's worth it for me.
So I heard last night Crimson Cure say something about being on these panels, right?
Mhm.
And being vetted and,
Mhm.
not being somebody that just said anything. So with that being said, a lot of the content, in the manosphere spaces or the red pill spaces, whatever you want to call them,
Mhm.
or the male dominant spaces, they have sometimes women on the panel. Do you think that some of these panels have women on them just to say anything, or have, particular women on because they know it's going to trigger certain people, and, they can, spew all the points that they want to spew to the women? Or
Mhm.
what do you think, or why do you think the reason is that a lot of these panels don't seem to be vetted? It's really just the gender war all over again. They're talking back and forth. They're talking at each other, not to each other. Why
Mhm.
do you think it's not like what Crimson was talking about last night with having vetted individuals, especially vetted women in
Mhm.
these spaces?
Yeah, when she first kind of came into the space at that time, especially on the content creation side, as a woman entering into the manosphere, talking about relationships, it was just rare. That wasn't a thing that women in mass were doing. So it was a lot more scrutiny. It wasn't open source. It wasn't anybody and everybody can just set up a mic. Like it was a very, it was she had to kind of take her battles. She got to take her hits when she was kind of entering into that space. Now, years later, anybody and everybody can just start a channel and just figure out how a way to build an audience. So
Mm.
her experience was just radically different than what we have now, where it's much more normalized for men and women to be in this space and dialogue and talk about these things. In terms of the reasons for why it is, I think a lot of people do it. I don't think there's any singular one reason. Sometimes it's just about the optics of having balance on the show, where it's not just all men or all women talking about something. Sometimes, or at least the illusion of balance. Sometimes it's about the clickbaity things that are going to go viral when you bring on an immature, emotionally unstable woman who can't receive feedback, criticism, opinions from more than the own echo chamber that she's used to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like, and that's going to bring eyeballs. People are going to watch. People are going to engage and respond to it. Sometimes it's because you want to see a diversity of opinion amongst women, where you have one woman that kind of leans more this way and one woman that leans more that way to show that parity. There's different strategies that's being utilized by depending on the panel and why. And again, the people that do it, they tend to have bigger audiences. They have bigger subscribers than me.
Yeah.
So the idea that it's not working in terms of what their initial goals are, it is. They're getting more views, they're getting
Yeah.
more subscribers, they're getting more money. So it does work. For me, I'm not. I'll be honest with you. If you're extremely rude, if you're ratchet, I use the term loner a lot. The loud, obnoxious, narcissistic, entitled, rude, or ratchet people, but
I
especially
like
women,
that.
yeah, or especially women, right? I,
Uh-huh.
I, I don't, I don't actually deal with them in real life, family or friends or strangers. I don't actually dedicate a significant amount of time in my actual day to day life, in my career. They don't have a place in my worldview. They don't fit.
Mm.
So then when it comes to my podcast space, I'm not I almost want to treat my podcast channel and space as somewhat similar to my real life, where
Yeah.
I kind of set the rules and boundaries for you to even enter into my life and my space to begin with. So when you move like that, like a lot of what people talk about, it exists, it's out there. But for those of us who have standards personally and professionally, there's a reason why you don't see a lot of those women like in my space like that or in my on my feed, because it's like it's just not it's a poor reflection on us as a community. It's a poor reflection on Americans. And for me, I'm like, in the grand scheme of it, yeah, I cut a nice check this month when I brought so and so on, but to what expense in the long run? So that's just kind of how I view it. But I do know that there's different reasons for why people probably bring women into these spaces to talk about relationships and men's issues specifically.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Let me recognize the super chat really quickly. I think that's Swa Jones, 4706. Thank you so much for the $10 super chat. For the red cup, dope content, salute. Thank you very much. Just to light up the chat real quick. Thank you. I appreciate it. So, with the panel discussions, right?
Mhm.
We were on
Oh,
one
your boy
of
Slimmy
one
in
of
the
the
chat, by
most.
the way.
Say it again.
Slimmy, he in the chat, by the
Oh,
way.
hey, Slimmy, Slim. What's going on? What's going on? So, with one of the panels that, you and I were both on, um, one of the times that I was on, they had a discussion about the red pill being dead.
Hmm.
Do you think there is still a need for the red pill, meaning those specific type of topics for men? Or do you think after so many years we've moved beyond it? And there isn't, a space for that anymore, because that discussion got really, when I say really heated, it got really heated
Hmm.
because there were people that felt as though, this type of information is always going to be needed for, young men,
Hmm.
and probably even for some young women, because I tell women all the time, if you want to know what men think, go ask a man, go listen to a man, go talk to your daddy,
Literally.
if you want to know. So a lot of them get triggered by these panels and things, but it will behoove them to actually listen. But
Facts.
going back to that topic, do you think the red pill is dead, or is it something that's going to continuously be needed?
Um, Whether people call it that or not, there
Yeah.
will always be the need for boys and men to not approach life ill-informed and ignorant when it comes to dealing with women and society.
Okay.
So, regardless of what people want to frame it and title it as, that always existed, whether it was mentorship, whether it was, like you said, going to a father, going to an older brother, talking in the barbershop. That concept of asking for advice, asking for feedback, trial and error, learning from your mistakes and passing it on to the next man or to the younger generation, that's always been a thing. It's not going anywhere and it's not going to go anywhere, regardless of what people who are anti it have to say. Just like
Mhm.
women talking on social media isn't going to go away because men are upset about it. That doesn't mean like it's going to always be. So Instead, I agree with you. I think the people's attitudes about it, and people like myself who's trying to be more psychoeducational, kind of letting people know a little bit more about the space and kind of approaching it slightly differently. Where it's like, I'm not starting over like they're all whores. Like I'm not doing that. It's more so
Ah,
like when I went to the fellas on Daily Rap Crew this past weekend in New York, and we
uh-huh.
was talking, and they was like, "What you think about this whole red pill thing?" And I was like, "A lot of people, a lot of guys are actually red pill, and they don't even realize it." And then when I kind of broke down the definitions of like the nuanced differences between red pill, black pill, white pill, and blue pill, they was like, "Oh my god, this makes sense now." And then
Mm.
after that, they was like, "All right, well, if that's the definition," I said, "Yeah." They was like, "I guess we would be considered red pill," and I'm like, "Exactly." So the reality is, it's like it doesn't matter what you call it. There's always going to be men that know the game. There's men that don't know the game, and men that suffer because of it. So this is just talking about it and navigating what the truths are in this space. So I'm not. I personally don't worry about, and even me launching my channel this particular year, I don't. I don't. I just don't. I don't think I care as much about people who are approaching these type of conversations in bad faith to begin with. If you have the wrong ill intentions, if you want to misconstrue things, if you want to misrepresent it as a default, it is what it is. But it doesn't. It does. As a man, it's not going to change what I think and what I believe, regardless of whether or not you want to actually see the merit of it or not. So that's my lens on it.
Okay, okay. Now I got a lot of other things
Mhm.
that are a little more controversial that I want to talk to you about.
That's all
But
it is.
let me go ahead and recognize these super chats really quick. We have Miss Brown Eyes. Hey, with the $20 super chat. Thank you so much. Hey Mika, I try to catch you when I can. Thank you. Well, you caught me on a good day because normally I'm not on Friday. So thanks to Jeff. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. My homie Slimmy with the 1999 super chat. Thank you, Slimmy. Salute to the homies. Keep grinding, y'all. I'm still on the clock. I told Jeff you work a lot. I
Mhm.
told him, I said, Slimmy always working. Thank you, Slimmy. I appreciate it. And then we have Eric Watson. Hey, love, with the 4.99 super chat. At Jeff, how has your life changed since creating your own YouTube channel and going viral? Your content is
Mm,
fire. And then
mm.
this is for me. At Mika, who cheats more, men or women? See, I
Ooh.
said I was gonna get controversial, and then you trying to take my shine.
You know what? You can answer the bottom question first, and then I'll answer my stuff because I think my stuff will be a little longer.
um, who I think cheats more? I think women cheat more.
I think women cheat more
Okay.
easily.
They always get mad at me. Y'all know I don't care. I love y'all, but y'all know I
Mhm.
don't care. I think women cheat more
Yeah,
because I think we're more strategic, and I think it's a it's a lot more going on with us when we cheat, and we also just to be plain and frank, we got more options,
there's that more opportunity.
more,
I
way more opportunities,
and
and
women
so it depends. Go
and
ahead.
women have a tendency when you talk to them, especially, and this the cheat code with being a therapist or growing up, being around a lot of women, especially like in hair salons and everything.
Mhm.
They don't even count what they do as cheating sometimes. Like,
that's
they
a,
got
that's a that is an absolute fact. But if it's you, that is
Mhm.
cheating.
It's very black and white when we do it, right? If I'm texting somebody I got no business texting, or if I'm, this is a great example of how they view cheating when it comes to social media. When she finds out he's liking other girls' pictures that's half naked or very attractive, she feels some type of way about it. Go to her page and see all these men ogling over her stuff with the hard eyes and everything, and she says there's no issue. That's how they often view cheating. This is why they'll stay friends with homegirls that they know then cheated and lied and did all this other stuff. And when they find out a guy did it, he's the worst thing ever. They don't even count what their version of cheating. They don't even count it as cheating. They just count it as he wasn't doing something. He wasn't fulfilling something for me.
Absolutely, and if you know, like some awful women, sometimes when it comes to like bodies,
Mhm.
they don't even count certain people.
Oh yeah, the whole ones where they what's the starting point? Whereas if it's not in a certain hole, it don't count. And if it was on a
Yeah, yeah.
Tuesday,
It wasn't.
like
Oh
bro,
no, it was no. That didn't count. Like, ma'am.
why you think they doing this whole born again virgin stuff? Like they just just make up rules based off of how they feel to try to redefine reality. So like they definitely cheat more. And this the thing, when you was the guy that was with them that was helping them to cheat on another guy, and then when you see how they move and how sneaky they are, it just changes your whole perspective. Like it's wild. It's wild.
And don't be the guy. And don't be the guy that she cheated with, and now you guys are supposed to be together,
Oh, that's
and
dumb.
you won't move it forward. It's like, ma'am, he literally watched you do all of this.
Oh
You
yeah,
don't think he has it in his mind that she gonna get me? She gonna get me the
oh
moment I
yeah,
see
she gonna see me special now. Like, come on, bro. Like, and that's the thing.
exactly,
Come on.
exactly. But
And so
how
in
has
terms
your
of how
life
my
changed?
yeah, how my life changed with the creating of my YouTube channel and stuff going viral. So I'll give it's two different answers. I think personally, actually I'll flip it. In terms of it's dope. It's dope to have over almost 2.5 million views since I started the channel this year. Like that's dope. That's awesome. It's nice to be able to put an idea out there and the public respects it, receives it well. Like any person that puts an idea out there and people see value in it, that's meaningful. Like I'm cool with that. It's awesome. It's an honor. I'm tired a lot because I work a 9 to 5. I got an hour commute there and back. I got a 1 year old. I'm in a
Oh,
brand new home. And I got a lot of responsibilities. So I'm just balancing and managing a lot of different things simultaneously. And I have my own private practice. So I'm just busier than probably I've ever been in the last 8, 10 years. In terms of personal, I think by me standing on and deciding to focus on what I perceive and believe and can verify more often than not is true, and that not always being something that a lot of people like, it's probably also very lonely. I probably have more people that know I exist and listen to my voice than ever before in terms of social media. But in
mhm,
terms of my personal life, maybe 98% of people in my life kind of vote, move, and act a certain way with what I'm saying doesn't align with their reality and their feelings and their views on things. So about
mhm,
98, 99% of people in my life aren't supportive of it, don't engage in it, don't follow it, don't share it, don't really say much of anything about it.
mhm,
And that could be both rewarding on one end and very isolated, where it's like when you put an idea out there, it explodes a lot of success with it, and you can't really celebrate it with people because they're still stuck in a certain mentality and mindset where they don't respect diversity of thought. They can't look at things from other angles or perspectives, and they're so kind of brainwashed by like politics, religion, culture, and tradition, to where anytime you say something that doesn't go with their normal conclusions,
mhm.
it's seen and interpreted and they react as if it's almost a threat. So I had already mentally prepared for that years in advance to this moment. So it doesn't bother me, but I'm aware of it. So in a way, it
Yeah.
can be very isolating and lonely. But at the same time, when you functionally decided as a man and as a person that like truth matters, making a difference, actually have an impact, and not wanting to fit into a crowd that's going nowhere, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, when you're a man and you know your purpose, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Those who gonna walk with you gonna walk, and other than that, nothing else matters.
Facts.
That's what I see. All
Mm,
right, so I want to get into this topic of Pearl. Okay. And
mhm,
the reason why I want to get into this topic, well, let me explain this to my red cuppers and the rest of the audience. Okay. Pearl, who is a content creator in the same, spaces, manosphere, red pill, whatever you want to call it. And then just a YouTube content creator in general, doing reactions and things like that.
mhm,
Talking to people on panels, such and such. Pearl, of course, is a white woman, and she tends to be in a lot of predominantly uh, Black or people of color spaces.
Mm,
And so she got, into this tuffle with Jazz, okay, who I also know, all right, because like I said, I met Pearl the one time she came on with us on Anton show,
mm,
and of course I know Jazz. So she got into a back and forth with Jazz, and some people were fine with it, some people were, some people felt a way about it, especially a lot of Black women.
mm,
I want to get your thoughts on what happened, and then I want to get your thoughts on Pearl in general and how she navigates, the spaces that she's in, not only with men, but with men of color and their counterparts,
mm,
Black women. Um, how do you view what Pearl does? Like
mm.
how does that resonate with you, and what do you see?
Well, for starters, Pearl was probably the first woman to explode on that scale during the 2020 COVID era, where she was able to reach those type of heights in terms of clearing 1 million subscribers in an extremely short amount of time,
Mhm.
especially talking about this type of content. So she was effectively the face of women in the manosphere, in a way. So obviously, with her doing that, with her confronting feminist and far left ideology and everything, she was a white woman able to say things to a lot of different audiences, and particularly other women that a lot of other women were often scared to do.
Mhm.
And she had the backing, she had the channel size to be able to be pretty big, for one. So, my personal stance with Pearl, even with being on her show, is never been that I agree with her on everything 100% of the time. I had Jazz on
Mhm.
my show. Me and Jazz
Yeah.
don't agree on things 100% of the time, right? But in terms of the racial dynamic and racial discussion, there were actually for a long time, even up to Pearl, very, very few Black channels of Black women who advocated on the behalf of men's experiences. So
Mm.
by default, a lot of Black men, I think, gravitated to her because there just wasn't very big channels at the time, 4, 5, 6 years ago,
Mhm.
where you had a woman who was able to unabashedly advocate and talk about men's issues. So that was kind of how a lot of men were introduced to Pearl.
Okay.
In terms of when she started discussing and talking about race, I always think that when it comes to these podcasts and the politics and the manosphere and all these different things, there's people that completely stay away from it. There's people that are kind of hesitant about talking much about race, and then there's people that will lean all the way in.
Yeah.
Earl, Myron, and others that's in the red pill manosphere space, they just will do that. Now, there's pros and cons to doing it, and this is the issue that I kind of have with people in general.
Yeah.
Um, One of the primary stereotypes about the Black community, both politically, socially, environmentally, etc., is that we are the most easily emotionally manipulated, easily emotionally able to be agitated and triggered group in the country by far.
Yep.
You can move us politically, you can move us spiritually, you can move us socially, and all you got to do is tap into our feelings and emotions, and you can kind of make us react and do anything.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's the
So
thought. That's the consensus.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
So when she says something good, bad, right, wrong, true, false, rather than just correcting the information or not even acknowledging it at all if you don't perceive it to be true or accurate reflection of you or yourself or your community,
Mhm.
I think a lot of times we end up falling for the trap. We end up falling for the tactics or strategies. There's a reason why when Jazz said back to her, well, maybe if we maybe we got white fatigue, and maybe white men should stop shooting up all these schools, and maybe white teachers should stop sleeping with all these students. She was like, her response was, hey, that's legit. That's true. We do need to get better at that. And that's the thing I want to sit in on it for a second. I don't think that we as a community think enough about how when someone like Jazz says something true about a community that Pearl represents, i.e., the white community, which seems to be a dominating demographic of those particular two
Mhm.
situations,
Mhm.
what was the rise out of Pearl? Next to nothing. She didn't curse. She didn't go off. She just accepted it like, yeah, that's a thing. But then with our community, whether a black woman does it, a white woman does it, a black man does it, whoever, when you talk about black women, black men, the black community, the violence, whatever you phrase or talk about, there's always going to be this percentage of people that just start in the community that start to get very offended and get super
Yeah.
emotional. And in the real world, you're entitled to do that. We're all free to do that. But like, if you're going to be on the platform and the goal is to debate and to debate ideas, um, showing your ass, getting emotional, moving closer and closer to reflecting and looking like many of the stereotypes, which is the angry black woman or the angry black man, you're just falling into the trap. So my initial lens is, I think that we could do a better job as a community of, if you're going to engage in this stuff, if you're going to get on these platforms, if you're going to debate people that you think radically different than, if you disagreeing with them or them saying something that's off color, that's wrong, that's true, that's right, bad, right, wrong, if that gets you to a place where you kind of have to act out of character, you have to get over, you're too emotionally stimulated, then maybe the internet and social media isn't for you. I think it's time for us to talk about panels and platforms and
Mm.
microphones as what's the standard you're going to hold for yourself,
Yeah.
so that when you get on the microphone, you don't forget that the camera is on and that you are representing someone other than yourself. And I think that's what I actually am more rooted in. Because for me, I have no, like, for me, I can sit down with Nick Fuentes. I can sit down with white supremacists and I can vehemently disagree with them. And I want the audience to walk away with, we hear his side, we hear Jeff's side, and who made a better argument and why. And
Absolutely.
not Jeff showed his ass and was embarrassing and he can't control himself because somebody said the word or somebody said this or somebody said that. The people who we should be the people in reality, the people who tend to, in my head, the people who are the ones that are not supposed to be able to regulate their emotions well, the
Mhm.
ones who can't handle themselves well, and the ones who can't logically and rationally explain why they think, feel, or disagree with something,
Mhm.
um, those people may not actually be able to do this as far as this type of work, which is fine. But to do it online and then to display that thing, listen, that's fine and all, but like, what was the end point and goal? She got more views, she got more subscribers, more people are talking about her, and a lot of the
And
talking
she was
points,
able to use it as content.
and she made money off of it. So I'm like,
Yeah.
now reimagine if you did, if somebody said, "Oh, black fatigue," and I'll be like, okay, I mean, there's probably global white fatigue too, depending on how you measure it.
Oh,
Said,
absolutely. I
right?
have it. I have white liberal fatigue.
Yeah,
They'll
so
tell you.
exactly. I have white. I have specifically have white liberal female fatigue personally.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's my lens, and it's like, I think as we get better at this, my thing. If
Yeah.
you know people's talking points, if you know what they tend to say, it's all over the internet. You can prep. This is like taking a test that you have the answer key to and still failing. Like,
Yeah.
how long have we watched all this content, watched all the talking points, watched everything that everybody got to say about every single group? And then when we get behind the microphone, we forget all of that and just operating only emotion. So, to
Absolutely.
each his own, everybody gets to react and feel how they want. But I think in terms of a long term approach and strategy, I think the people that tend to stand out the most are the ones that are able to remain calm, sure, rooted in their truth, and be able to still articulate themselves in a way where they can be effective and actually be able to look like the winner without having to try to get emotional or get physical or have to attack somebody physically in order to try to prove a point.
And I do think it's something culturally as well,
Mhm.
right? And you know how we talk about having advantages and things like that, right? If I
Yeah.
tell women if they want an advantage, they, go listen to men and vice versa,
Mhm.
right? With
Mhm.
men. But I will also say this. Knowing different cultures also gives you an advantage, right?
Yeah.
Growing up in a white household for me gave me the advantage of knowing what I call white sarcasm. Okay. And knowing when it's not malicious,
Mhm.
knowing when it is, knowing when it's what they call now trolling, so um Pearl has all of those, and she's able to use them to create content, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
creating content with that is absolutely perfect, right? um but someone who doesn't know, those cultural things might take all of that and internalize it
Yeah.
when it's actually not towards you per se.
Mhm.
So I looked at that debate and I was just sitting there like, you know, Pearl understands what she's saying. She understands what's true, what
Mhm.
what teeters borderline to where somebody may think you're saying something. And to me, all of that is fair in content, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
all of that is fair when you're going back and forth with someone. And once you start going back and forth with someone, you have to have the information. It's not up to the person that, is on the opposite side of whatever spectrum you're talking about. It's not up to them to state whatever information you deem factual, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I'm just sitting there like, you have to know that this is to throw you off. If you're
Yeah,
going to state a point,
that's
state a
it.
point.
That's it. It's a
She states the
game.
point and you disagree with it and say why. But when you start to do all that maneuvering based on you being triggered,
Mhm.
that person has already won.
How about this? Are the majority of panel discussions that are done in the whole manosphere, red pill, relationshipy talk, are the majority of them set up in such a way where we're going to have a deep, nuanced conversation where there's no over talking, people are listening to each other, allowing people to give their 2 or 3 minute answers? Is that how these panels are normally set up? Or are they set up to have volatile, strong personalities, people to lash out, trigger each other, and see who cracks first? That's usually how a lot of them are set up, which is also why I
Yes.
don't do a lot of them, because I don't think a lot of them are often very meaningful. If that does that make sense to you?
No, that absolutely makes sense. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like what you said. You've watched enough of these panels to be, to be in the know, to say, "Hey, okay, I know this is." I don't even watch Pearl enough to know Pearl all the way, but I've
Mhm.
watched enough of her on certain panels and in certain discussions to understand where she's going to go with something, where she's going to take it.
Yep.
And I also in school was on a debate team. So I understand what I'm listening to, what key keywords to listen to, what triggers, what they're going to say, what they're not going to say, how to come back, what to use, all of that, right?
Mhm.
But you have to know your opponent, right? And we know on these panels, we know who's going to be on the panels ahead of time. Like
Yeah.
if you're going
Usually.
to actually get on these panels and do these things, you guys have to know that it's going to be something there that somebody wants to trigger you about.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what the other thing is? I think that a lot of people think it's I'll give people credit this. I think a lot of people who haven't done any content creation, haven't been in panels, I do think they think it's easier than it actually is. In terms of engaging with 4 or 5 different people simultaneously with all their own different agendas and things that they're trying to come at you with. So there is that dynamic, but like I in college, I actually took one of my first course in college that kind of changed the game for me was a speech course. And an
Mhm.
elective I took was a logic course. And between the speech course and the logic course, it kind of changed. And then me getting into counseling, it changed my whole dynamic about how it is that I analyze and interpret and see conversations. I'm paying attention to maybe a whole host of other things. I'm paying attention to nonverbals. I'm looking at the ways in which people answer questions.
Yes.
I'm looking at the different strategies and fallacies that they use. So I just have a whole different lens and lane. I'm more curious at I would a great example of like somebody that if they jump to let's talk about black people, and I would be like I'm very interested. Do you normally do that? Do you normally talk about black people in that way? And I was like, and just to clarify, just to make sure we're on the same page, when you're talking about black people, you tend to talk about us as a group, But when Charlie Kirk got shot and killed and the accused was a white man, do you tend to see that as a reflection of white culture or the white group or an issue with the white community? Or is that just a lone shooter? Yeah, I just want to see it. I just want to get a gauge as to like, do you tend to view minorities or black people as like a group or a monolith, and then you get to view white people as like individuals? Just wondering. And that's a totally different way of engaging with somebody who says something that potentially can be taken very negatively or even an outlandish way. So there's
Yeah,
stuff like that where it's like I understand why everybody's going to respond differently than me. I've studied and watched enough debates to know that the most effective strategy this is how you lose. You lose by losing your cool. You lose
absolutely.
by going off. You lose by quitting. So you when you get on panels and you start to debate people, your ability to remain calm, measured in your approach with your response and in your methodology of how you want to respond, even if you bullshit, it still sounds like you with it. It still sounds like you actually are bringing something to the table. But when people can just visually see that you've lost it emotionally and mentally, you've lost the debate. That's just how people, that's how the audience tends to like receive it.
Yeah, I have something that I tell my friends when they're quote unquote arguing with their dude. I just say okay. And my friends used to get so upset with me. They're like, what do you, why do you keep saying that? I'm like, just say okay.
Yeah.
And one day my friend tried it with her husband and she was like, oh my God. I said, okay. And he was like, what? And she said, I said, okay. And
Mm.
she's like, I left it at that. And he was so mind blown
Mm-hmm.
because it's not her norm. Right? It's not her norm. He
Mm-hmm.
knows what she's going to do. She's going to argue back and forth. Like when people have you pegged and figured out, it's easy for them to rattle you. It's easy for them, to get at you at
Mm-hmm.
any form of fashion.
Yeah.
So I just that's one thing about these panels that and I just sit there and half of the time I'm quiet
Mm-hmm.
because I'm looking at that. I'm looking at the nonverbal cues. I'm looking at how somebody debates. If they're going to cut me off, if they're going to do this. So I'm usually not the first person to ever speak.
Yes. Yes. People, you don't talk enough. That's because I'm listening.
Yeah.
That's because I'm deciding who it is and how it is that I want to engage. One that key thing you said about okay, or silence, or
Mhm.
you just move on to the next person to engage with someone else. These are all other strategies. If you feel like this person just is operating in bad faith with me, or in terms of the whole overall conversation, I won't even I won't even I won't even dignify that what they said with any response from me. Like there's just
Absolutely.
so many different other ways of how to approach when someone says something you don't like in this space. Again, this is very different than somebody doing this with you in the workplace or even doing this with you in your real everyday life. I'm just saying that when there's an audience in particular, and the challenge is, or the suggestion is that there's black fatigue, and part of the issue with black fatigue is the belief system is that there's one group in society that functionally gets away with being able to act and behave however it is their emotions tell them to do in that moment. Then displaying that in real time, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's my
It, it,
that's
it
my
gives
thing.
it gives it gives credence to something that people try to push back against.
Yeah.
But you're showing it in real time. So I
Mhm.
absolutely agree. Um, uh, another thing I wanted to talk to you about is I have noticed, from watching your content,
Mhm.
that you seem to be, and it may not be, a political thing, but you seem to be more in a conservative values,
Mm.
right? And so as a black man in this climate and with of course Donald Trump in office because everybody seems to have TDS whether they're black or white.
Mhm.
Um in this climate though, how how do you how do you look at being conservative? And then with that being said,
Mhm.
how do you handle people that seem to automatically think that you are Republican or automatically think that you are on the Donald Trump train
Mhm.
or that you're a sellout and all of these things because you're not doing what culturally uh,
Mhm.
a black man would usually do or say.
Yeah, well, my starting premise is that there are no men left in the Democrat Party anyway. I
Um,
think there's only males.
we
And the
got to
reason why I say
bring
that
this
is
up.
because yeah, there's no men in the Democrat Party today. There,
Absolutely.
there's just males, and what I and the differentiating factor between a male and a man is men are allowed to disagree with women, and they functionally have no problem with being in a leadership position. Whereas Roland Martin was wearing a shirt and pushing and promoting, and everybody was saying it's black women that's leading, saving democracy, and vote like a black woman. And you're telling black men to be led by their women politically, and Michelle Obama and Barack Obama's running around wagging their finger, chastising men, and Joe Biden saying you ain't black if you don't. Like, I don't know how many forms of emasculation they can show you for you to just say, all right, honey, which way we voting? Like, at some level, you got to realize, like, they don't respect men, they don't respect masculinity. The only men they do like and value are ones that's a part of the LGBTQ. So that wasn't a hard decision to not associate with that party as of right now, as currently constructed. And my view is not that many people who would have previously considered themselves classic liberals or Democrats previously, a lot of them say the same thing. They didn't change, the party changed. We didn't leave the party left us. The party went more extreme.
Absolutely.
They're allowing things that in the 90s Democrats sound like conservatives today in many
Absolutely.
respects. So
Hmm.
I already know that, and everybody who's already left the party knows that. It's the people who are still brainwashed and indoctrinated and propagandized to think they're not allowed to step off of that plantation. They don't. They haven't they haven't answered the question, or have never asked the question of the possibility of, could I be wrong? Everybody else that's left, or everybody that functions like an independent like myself, we've already gone through that mental exercise. People who are super stuck on the liberal far left space, they can't think of a scenario, they can't think of a situation where they and their party can be wrong in a particular space. They haven't done that yet. So they
Absolutely.
only use confirmation bias when they're having conversations with you. They've already started with the premise that anybody who disagrees with me is evil. Anybody who disagrees with me and is black is a sellout, and anybody who disagrees with us and votes differently than us is anti-black. They've already made that decision in advance, and they're trying to force people that they engage with that's on the opposite end of the spectrum in one of those key buckets. So they've already
Yeah.
made those decisions. So that wasn't hard for me. I'm personally a political independent. I actually have some liberal values. I have some progressive values. I have some conservative values. And I actually think most people, depending on the topic, are
Most people
actually
are in the middle. I
yeah.
could tell you in this climate,
Mhm,
majority, I'm on the right majority in this climate. But I tell people all the time, I'm registered as no affiliate. I am
yeah,
a MAGA Republican.
mhm,
That's what I pretty much call it, right? Because I believe in a lot of the policies that Donald Trump talks about.
mhm,
But make no mistake about it, they don't just have my vote.
mhm,
Like, they have to work for my vote as well. Donald Trump worked for my vote, which is why he got it.
yeah,
Democrats have never worked for my vote, so they've never gotten it. Um,
yeah,
and
like,
so
so
that's how I view it.
listen, as a black, and this is a substantive question that I'm gonna ask to all the black men in particular who are still kinda on that space.
Hmm.
The question I ask is, have you ever wondered 2 things?
Okay.
If the majority of your women that tend to vote one way, who's functionally seen as the leaders of the party and the leaders of the community, and are treated as such and referenced and talked about as such, and they're the ones that get pandered to, and they're the ones that get sold and marketed to in terms of campaigns. If they're the leaders and you see the direction and the state of the community, which
Hmm.
is, and they've been doing this at least since the 80s, right?
Hmm.
And if you ever those of you who are black men who are currently voting one way, rather than just thinking, well, I don't want Trump, or I'm not going to vote for the right, or I'm not going to, that's fine. My
Right.
initial question is, if you ever wonder why every other demographic of men decreased and either went independent or went fully conservative, what's the thing that all other men went and did? Why do you think all other demographics of men, all of them, went in a totally different direction in comparison to you all, who is in a community where everybody believes your women wears the pants. Did y'all ever wonder why all the other men in mass moved in another direction than you did? If every other demographic of men that's doing better than you in nearly every other statistical area in mass moved in a different direction than you were going in following your women,
Mm-hmm.
and the state of your community isn't getting better, isn't being politically um, improved upon, and the very group you're voting for was opening up the borders for a future demographic that was just going to replace you anyway in the very areas where the most vulnerable people, Black people, live. Did you ever wonder or think about why all the my view and lenses? This is why I say there are no men in the Democrat Party. It's
I
only
agree.
males that's female led and was raised by women. There are no men left. There's no
Yeah.
men. It's
They
it's
always say that too. They're like, well, I was raised by a single mother, and
even
what
if
does
it
that have
wasn't
to do with you being a man?
even if it wasn't the single mother issue, if and this is the litmus test for me,
Yeah.
a litmus test for the audience, and people can test this theory to see how much of a man you are or claim to be.
Mhm.
If you can't say something publicly or privately in front of women or on social media about Kamala Harris, about the Democrat Party, about the Black community, or about Barack Obama, that means you have the women around you and the women on social media and the liberal women that you're fearful of, you have their feelings higher than you have truth.
Absolutely.
That's a very simple thing. No politician's perfect. Every politician has their flaws. And if
Correct.
you can't state that bringing on Meg the Stallion and all these people to twerk and be a poor reflection of a way to market to our community, and talking about weed and BS to market to Black men while chastising them, if you can't say all of these things were wrong and inappropriate and they wouldn't have treated and acted this way towards other communities, if you can't say that, then don't talk to me about what the Republicans have to offer. One side at least acknowledges that men exist, and the other side says men are just the inconvenient thing that we need for elections, and you just need to listen to your women and shut up and get in line. So that was very easy for me. And how do I know this? Because whenever I tried to bring up those talking points, the men reacted the exact same way the women did.
That is the key factor,
Mm,
right? Because when I talk to liberal men, that is what I get, right?
mhm.
Well, yeah, I agree with, the taxes, or I agree with, certain values, but I want my wife and my daughter to have access to healthcare. I'm like, well, they have access to healthcare. No, I want them to have to have access to I call them deletions. And I'm just like, "Wait a minute.
Listen, they were voting alongside a group
What?"
that when they took the exit polls right after they voted, the number one thing that the group that was the leaders was saying, out of the border, out of war, out of different economic options and solutions, the cost of housing, all the different options of all the problems in society, the number one thing that was a priority to them was abortion. That's
Absolutely.
that's your leaders. And I'm saying,
Absolutely.
as men, first of all, our replacement rate is crazy. Where we our nuclear families are a mess. Our single mother households are through the roof.
Mhm.
And we have a huge percentage of Black men that have no children, that are not married, and have no prospects. Everything's in shambles. There's a gender war. And the group that you're following and vote, and like Roland Martin said, vote like a Black woman, their number one agenda was abortion. And
Yeah.
I'm crazy for saying there may be a couple other things on the rung that may be a little bit better or more important than that. I'm not saying reproductive rights or abortion doesn't have its place, but it can't be number one, can't be
But
number
but but
two,
it
and can't be number
absolutely
three.
it absolutely will be number 1 when the leader is a woman,
Mm,
because here's the thing. Men are to me,
mhm,
biologically already inept to deal with family or to deal with others, meaning they think about others as a whole. Like, if I do this, how is it going to affect everybody else?
mm,
just being honest,
Mhm.
women, when we think about stuff, how is it going to affect me? If I do this, hmm, no, I don't think I
Oh,
want that.
it
And
yeah,
so you
yeah.
you have you and it's that it's like that for a reason. And I understand because we operate off of different things, right?
Mhm,
But with that being said, when it comes to leadership, if if that's not going to be able to switch, especially when you planned on leading others, what you do and what you say affects others, then you cannot lead. Like, you
mm,
absolutely cannot lead. And Barack Obama and Kamala and all the rest of them kept trying to
mhm.
make it such as, well, you just don't want to vote for a woman. No, we don't want to vote for incompetent.
You know, that happened to me in the workplace. Um, a white coworker,
Mhm.
she was, you'd have swore it was just like when Trump got elected the first time. People talking about one leave, and they ain't going nowhere. And the discussion, the two points of the discussion that was related to what you and I discussed. The one was
Yeah.
about abortion,
Mhm.
and she said very emphatically, the number one most important thing for her was abortion. Um, and I'm like, well, how many you plan on having? That was my first
And
thought,
it's always and
right?
it's no shade with the ladies. It's always the older one, and it's like,
Yep.
yeah,
And,
you've
and the
had your children.
and the second part was she said, I just think that there's just all they just were so sexist and so this and so that. And I was like, oh, that's a very interesting assumption. She said it's undeniable. And I was like, but I didn't vote for Kamala Harris. And she was like, well, you're different. And I said, well, why? She said, well, I know you. And I was like, but I voted third party. There was certain principle reasons for why I, in good faith, couldn't vote for either candidate this go around, and I already knew how the election was going to go, which made me voting third party very easy from a moral reason. And I said to her, "The person, if I voted for Jill Stein, does that make me sexist?" She said, "No, no, 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 no." And I was like, "So let me get this straight. You're saying that all these men that didn't want to vote for Kamala Harris is because they're sexist and hate women."
Mhm.
And when I give you a test example with me, you're like, well, you're not sexist. And I was like, yeah, but and I said, the only reason why you're saying that about me is because you know me. And I said, but you're saying that about all the millions of people that you don't know. What if their
Yeah.
number one focus was the border? What if their number one focus was believing he would have a better outcome with Ukraine and getting Putin to sign a potential peace deal in the next year or two than they
Yeah.
believed in either Joe Biden or Kamala Harris? You don't think that people have a other set of priorities that just abortion is just not at the top? And that's when I learned and realized, yeah, a lot of the people, they're one issue voters on that
Yes.
side. And
Yes.
the moment you disagree with them about it, I'm like, I don't, am I in Bizarro world? Like, I'm not a MAGA person. I'm an independent thinker who decides each topic if it would make sense to me. And I'm like, am I crazy? So you're saying I'm Republican and a Trumpian and a MAGA person because I truly believe that a man's penis shouldn't be in a female um locker room or prison.
Yes. Yes.
Like
It,
I'm
it's
bizarre. Is this bizarro world? Like y'all.
no, it's absolutely like that. Even if, even if you are a liberal, and you're a lesbian woman, okay, like the lady Tish Hyman, okay, you're a
Mhm,
lesbian woman. The moment you don't go with what the narrative is, that's what you are, right?
mm, mm,
And if you are a person like me that, you know, believes in the make America great again, America first, whatever,
mhm.
right? Um, they'll do something else that's just as equally as, ignorant. They'll do, well, why?
Well,
How?
well, you know what?
Like
I
like
gotta
you're a person of
okay.
color.
Yeah. I got a controversial thing. This whole uh 19th Amendment, women voting thing. What's your thoughts about that?
So my thoughts are as such, okay? Um, I think women have hindered a lot of progress.
Mm.
And it's not all of us,
Uh-huh.
right? Because there's a lot of us that are very um, logic based, right?
Yeah.
As women, we still operate from emotion, but we're logic based, meaning we can understand why something happens.
Mm.
But I understand it from, the human aspect of we all are in this country, we all are humans, we should all have the same, inherent rights.
Mm-hmm.
But it has absolutely hindered a lot of the progress because if you look at how women responded to not being able to have certain things, right? Okay, women couldn't have bank accounts, women couldn't work, women couldn't do this. The the correction was an overcorrection. It's an overreach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Instead of just, the opportunity,
Mm.
it's no, I'm going to force the outcome. And it has made, this a topic because it's like you you're invited to the party and it's somebody else's birthday and you have to come in and be the light of the party,
Mm-hmm.
and steal all the shine. And then if somebody isn't giving that to you, now that person is the problem. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like and it's just like you had enough men to say, yeah, I want to give you the equal opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're dealing with the fourth wave feminism that's taking those very same men who had enough empathy to care about your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And you're taking those very same men and telling them that they're sexist, that they're this and that they're not worth anything, that they're what they are inherently is toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, you get to be what you are naturally.
Mm.
And they've been supporting it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, on one hand, yeah, I understand because I'm a woman and I vote logically, right? I
Mm-hmm.
vote how it will best affect a republic, not a democracy, because I don't believe in the mob rule.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It,
I
yeah.
do think that it has definitely hindered our progress.
Listen, I'm not on the camp of the people who are, I guess, literally on the far right of like we need to
Yeah.
repeal the 19th Amendment. Women got to lose their
Yeah,
right
no,
to
I'm
vote.
not I'm not on that.
Yeah, I'm not there either, but I do recognize when too many people in the electorate that functionally operate on primarily emotion and have very little to lose and own very little, have the most such big sway in terms of other people's lives that do have those things. Most of the people who vote in the most extreme ways
Yeah.
don't have children, don't own
Family.
land, um, just a host of things that I've been noticing that
Yeah.
like I think that demographic is going to constantly try to vote for anybody who promises to give them something, and they're willing to give up any rights as a trade-off to do that,
Yeah.
right? They'll fall for any Marxist um trade-off that they think in the end they gain something, even without realizing what it is that they're giving up on the other end. I'm gonna be honest with you. My view of voting right now is I think we need to raise the voting age to 25 or 30.
I can
Um,
agree.
Number one. I think we seriously need to reevaluate the whole one household, one vote.
I now that is
There's
is
pros and
something
cons.
that probably would get more than, the women's, repeal. That probably would get more.
Well, yeah, and the reason and this is my lens in reference
Mhm.
to it. Whatever the group of adults that are in that particular residence, like that's their actual residence. You have to decide if you're gonna live on your own. You have to be with somebody that you're like-minded with, or unless both if there's a man and a woman in the home and they both disagree and they both can't vote, guess who don't get a vote this election? Y'all asses don't. I think we need to get to a place where I'm seriously like, I think we need to raise the voting age. I think we got to potentially go to one household votes. I think we need to act. It's going to sound bad because I think a lot of people are going to view it through the lens of disenfranchisement. But I think so many people are indoctrinated and propagandized and controlled with where to vote and how to vote that I think we need a basic civics test that could be taken written or orally. Um, you question number one: are we in a democratic republic or are we in a democracy? If you don't know that we're not in a democracy, do you really think you should be establishing who it is that we
Absolutely not. I have to
exactly,
tell people this every
exactly.
day.
And then last but not least, and this may be arguably on top of the whole one household vote, the second one that I'm thinking about that I think would be kind of controversial is what the founders did back at the very beginning. I'm starting to think that maybe it's the people who pay property taxes that should get significant more sway in the vote. And the reason is because people who don't have to pay for that always talk about where taxes need to go. And they're always advocating for more and more taxes, much of which they're not paying for. We're paying
Absolutely.
$14,000 in Jersey now, and a whole host of people who don't got it are the ones who are the recipients of what all these supposed things are. I'm like a huge when the governor won, she had this policy that she was running in terms of like adding some supplemental money to go towards helping people in terms of daycares. But the overwhelming percentage of people who own property and can afford to live in Jersey, who's paying for it, can't even engage in the services. So it's like the people who are paying in the people who are voting in California and voting in New York, a lot of them that are voting that way can't even afford the things that needs to pay for it. And the people who can afford it end up leaving the state.
Absolutely. That's why Maryland has had a mass exodus.
Mass
Because
exodus in all these
yep,
places. So I'm like, that's my lens where I'm starting to think that we need to have a legitimately not only a more educated populace that's voting, but also a sample size of people who have more stake in the future of America. You got too many childless, properly less people who haven't done and put in the work or make life decisions to put themselves in a position, and they want to keep voting for if you think open borders is fine, how can you get a vote?
absolutely. And see, again, it goes back to that emotional vote, right? Because they're like, oh, people want to come here. Don't you have compassion? Yes, but I also know that the reason why a lot of people can't find homes is because they're already taken
Mm.
by a mass of 10 million people that just influx here all of a sudden. Where do
Mhm.
you think they stay?
Mhm.
Okay. Or you're yelling and screaming about, well, I want to make more money. Well, when you got a group of people that'll do it for peanuts and you're
Mhm.
asking for $20 an hour, where do you think I'm going to go? I'm going to
Look.
go where I can get it done for cheaper.
Mhm.
Okay. And
Mhm.
you've just invited that to me. So when these people think they're being social justice warriors, really, though they're doing the corporations a favor because they would love nothing more, especially the liberal ones, to do what
Mhm.
they were doing before, which is slavery. And this is just a revamp of it. You've
Yeah.
now allowed them to circumvent you, and now you're asking the government by proxy coming back around asking the same people you're asking to raise the wages,
Mm.
to raise taxes.
Mhm.
Why would they do that? They have a whole group here already willing to do it for a difference. It's just
Yeah.
if you don't know, and I agree with you. If you don't know economics, if you don't know civics, yeah, I don't think you should be voting. And on top of that, your thought process of 25. There's an old saying that my grandfather used to say,
Mhm.
when you're young, you're Democrat. When you're old, you're Republican. Because now you actually have responsibilities. You know what has to go to what and to what and to what.
Mhm.
And you don't want to just give it up. You don't want to just give it to somebody who they may or may not want to go to work, may or may
Mhm.
not use it for the proper thing. We're putting all of this money into the social programs,
Mhm.
but then come to find out, uh, they're at the nail salon. They're at this. You're
Exactly.
budgeting,
Mhm.
trying to figure out if you're gonna get steak or shrimp,
Mhm.
and they can, go on hauls at Costco's. Like I can't tell you how many hauls I've seen on TikTok. Let
Uh-huh.
me show you how to shop for this. I'm like, I've never spent that much in Costco.
Uh-huh. How about this? You know what else I want on that test? A question about if what's more dangerous, a man or a bear. So we can sift out and eliminate all the idiots right off rip. If you picking a bear as more safe than a man, then you can't vote. Not this election, maybe next election cycle. I think that's the only way that we can kind of remedy some of this dumb assery in terms of just how people are messing with. We are at a place where people are debating about what a man and a woman is, and whether or not people that snuck in the country should be allowed to be here and stay,
Absolutely.
and whether or not our tax dollars should go towards them or not. We are in such a bizarre world where Jeff can identify something as something else today and be able to take medals from women tomorrow. We're in such an insane place that I'm like, there has to be a way. There has to be something with what we can do. Y'all don't ever want me to be president.
Yeah, you have to overcorrect. What they did in the
Y'all would
beginning,
never want me to be. Y'all
you
would
have
never
to.
want me to be president because it's like all this crazy. Y'all think Trump is crazy, and I'm not even going to be super. First of all, I'm just going to call a spade and it be done with it. I'm not doing all this back and forth. It's
Absolutely.
foolishness. We're debating.
Absolutely.
We're debating insanity at this point.
Yeah, I say that all the time. They get in the chat and they say, "Oh, Mika, you should run for office." Absolutely not. Okay. The first debate, they're gonna get her out of here because I'm gonna tell you right now. The first time you tell me, "Oh, women are women," absolutely not.
Mm.
Okay, that is a man.
Mm-hmm.
And they debate. Well, I put on this, I put on that. Okay, I have XX and you have XY.
Mm-hmm.
Can you get that? No, no. Okay, then we're not the same. So I don't have time for that. And that right there is something that I don't think is going to change in this generation. Right? They've been programmed from pre-K all the way up. And
Mm.
let's not even discount the food, the chemicals, the stuff
Yeah.
that they're putting in the air.
Yep.
Like a lot of people view all of these things as conspiracy theory. But then
Mm-hmm.
again, if you understand your civics, you can go right to congress.com or
Mm-hmm.
look up the archives and look in these files and see that there are legislative bodies that have put these things into law. Geoengineering is
Mm-hmm.
a thing. Okay, like all of these things have an effect on the younger generations. And so
Yeah.
if we're not willing to deal with all of that and put a stop to it, which I don't think Donald Trump is perfect, but
Mm-hmm.
I always go with the 80/20. Okay. I think majority of what he does
Yeah.
is a way better benefit than what, Sleepy Joe or anybody else would have did. Because
Yeah.
it's about putting certain things back together. And
Mm-hmm.
even all the way to the tariffs, because a lot of people don't understand that, but yet you want to keep paying something that's illegal, which is income taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this fight with people, all the time, but I'm like, I literally went to school for this. It's
Mm-hmm.
illegal, but you
Mm-hmm.
guys agree with it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so they keep taking advantage of the ignorance that we
Yeah.
have as a population.
Yep.
And they're going to keep doing it until we push back. So I absolutely agree with you. If I were president, I would be a dictator. The courts would be mad, all of that, because I would just shut it all down and
Mm-hmm.
pass anything I could, because you need an overcorrection. Because at this rate, asking this body, this legislative body, trying to
Mm-hmm.
see if we can come together, it's not going to work. It's absolutely not going to work. You have to put your foot down. Like, you got to put your foot down. And my belief is that a lot of men
Mm-hmm.
have to start putting their foot down. And that
And
goes for your
and
mamas,
you know
your
the first way to
sisters.
do it. The first way to do it is doing what I'm doing. You have to stand on something that's true that you know everybody around you knows is true and is not willing to acknowledge as the truth. If you're
Absolutely.
able to do that, that's the beginning stage of, I believe, grown ass males actually learning what masculinity and being a man is. And they've been so sheltered and conditioned and socialized to and feminized to where the idea of going against mama or going against the women in their lives or going against what tradition says, that like it's terrifying to them to think about the alternative of being an independent thinker. I've always said, like, you can't be a group if it's vote blue no matter who and vote red no matter what's said. That means that you're a group. You cannot be a group thinker and an independent thinker simultaneously.
Yeah.
So if that's your mentality of party loyalty, you've already taken your brain and set it to the side and say, when the election comes, this is how I vote. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter the issues, doesn't matter what they stand on, doesn't matter what they're advocating for is harming the American people or a particular subgroup or the Black community specifically. Doesn't actually matter, because this is how I've been trained and told from everybody I know. This is how I got to vote. At some, it ain't even about as a man, what am I getting? Like, I'm meeting with people now and who's come up with awesome agendas, books, working alongside politicians and hearing what is it they got to say. I between now and the next presidential election, I want there to be a massive movement of men that actually looks at their votes as being worth something,
Hmm.
versus my vote is goes wherever the women around me say it should go. Like, how about a trade-off? How
Yeah.
about we be like, you know what? We can keep talking on these panels and all these podcasts about how the family court is unfair and we should be 50-50 custody and there should be mandatory paternity test and this and that. You can keep talking about it, but until enough of you leave in mass to where the remaining people in that party that are in positions change laws like they did in Kentucky, until you sense that and see that, you have to be willing to make your vote actually be meaningful and worth something. As men, I'm so tired and upset and frustrated with men that are so beholden to the two-party system and
Hmm.
this side's evil and this side's good. You've been between the feminism and the two-party duopoly system, you've been so brainwashed that when you hear people not use those talking points or think differently, you think they're crazy.
Yeah.
So, we'll
Yeah.
see what
And
happens.
that's why I don't like to really use the party names. I use more the term liberal and conservative because
Mhm.
it's a mindset, it's an
Yep.
ideology, right?
Yep.
And so I think that matters more than, what party you belong to, because I don't, again, I don't vote Democrat, but John Fetterman makes complete sense to me
Mhm.
sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, I met him last month. Him and Mayor Sherrell in Philly. I
Yeah.
got to see
So
and meet both of them.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, that's why I talk in the way I talk. But I want to say this.
Mhm.
I think that, there needs to be more men like you in your vein,
Mm,
because we have, the extreme on both sides. We have the extremes, but we don't have many in the middle that are willing to have conversations, or and I'm not talking about a conversation just so you can, retort whatever you want to say in your talking points, but a conversation to actually have understanding that I think one way and you think one way.
mhm,
How can we come together to actually make something work?
mm,
Because I don't think men are wrong, right? And how they feel. And a lot of women get upset with me because I'm able to say, I don't think they're wrong. If this was happening to you, like it's happening now with, alimony and things like that to women, they're actually seeing it. Oh, I don't,
mhm,
why is she paying this? Men have been doing this for a long time.
mhm,
But when it personally affects you, now you can see it.
mm,
So without having to go down that route,
mhm,
I think there should be more men that want to lead, but also be able to have open dialogue. And I think good leadership
mhm,
comes from men that they may have the last word, but they take into account what the people around them say and what the people around them bring and their value.
mhm,
I want to give you the last word in response to that.
mhm. Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think that to be fair to the call and challenge of what it is that I'm doing, and trying to make masculinity great again. I'm trying to get cats to start realizing that much of what's happened to us and much of what we're dealing with and much of why our community and society and culture looks the way that it does is because of what we as men have allowed. Is what we've allowed.
That's why I
And
said to
and
put
I
there.
think that we actually have more power than we've been told and conditioned to
Yes.
believe.
Yep.
Noam Chomsky, who is a really big intellectual icon for me in terms of a lot of his thoughts. And right, I don't agree with him on everything, but he explained how a brainwashed group is effectively one where all you got to do is limit the spectrum of disagreement, but allow that spectrum within that spectrum, almost like the Overton window. Once you kind of establish what the rules are of how you can vote, who you can vote for, and is these only two options, and then allow a lively debate within it, it gives the illusion that people actually have more freedom and choice than they actually do. I'm trying to get people to get out of that mental framework that is a matrix that's conditioned them to be like, this is the equivalent of like you get in a car and you drive the same way to work every day on a certain road. And when somebody says, yo, if you take this road, you actually get there 15 minutes sooner. And you just freeze up and like go crazy and be like, no, I got to take this road. And it's like, hold on. I hear you. But if you take this road, it may be more efficient, better, and maybe even and get you sooner to what it is that you think that you want to get to. You're so conditioned to only thinking there's one path and one road. This is why you think that when everybody says, well, we only got two options, this is why you think that it is. You didn't decide that for yourself. You were told you only
Mhm.
have two options in life. Why is it that a lot of these other countries got 4 or 5 different parties competing simultaneously, and
Mhm.
you keep being told, I got a vote of the lesser of two evils? I'm gonna be honest with you. If you keep telling me that my only two options is evil and eviler, James,
Yeah.
what's his name? Not James Baldwin. I can't remember his name. Older gentleman that died a few years ago, black. Dick Gregory. Dick
Oh
Gregory
yeah, I
said
love Dick Gregory.
Dick
Yeah.
Gregory said to Roland Martin, who was constantly stumping on this whole Democrat, 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 the other side, the other side, the other side. He said, if you tell me I have to vote for the lesser of two evil, at the end of the day, that still means I voted for evil.
Absolutely.
And I think that if we had a moral awakening, a masculinity awakening, and a leadership revival, particularly amongst men, the entire civilization and society would change. I think that we've kind of grown dormant. I think we've eased up. We've allowed other groups to come in and control our women, control our communities, and it's in shambles. And it will not change and won't change because we keep debating with women on the internet. It will not change and won't change just because we keep talking about it on social media. It is only going to change when we change our approach with the women around us, if
Yep.
we change our approach with how we interact in society, and if we change our approach politically as men. So until men have real demands, we'll have one party that effectively ignores us, shames us, and even attacks us, actually. And then one party that potentially will pander to us, but doesn't even often have to deliver anything for men. I'm going to be honest with you. Women have been getting so many gains. They've been getting special perks. They've been getting all kind of incentives. They've gotten a whole bunch of trade-offs for they vote for my whole life. As men, specifically, what are you
Mhm.
guys actually getting? Because y'all keep voting for the very people who, when you talk to them in real time, and say, hey, I think the paternity thing is unfair. And I think false allegations, we need to do this. And I think that the family court system needs to be updated. If you're talking to a side, talking to a group, talking to liberals who hear you, know that it's unfair, and then vote to make sure it stays the same, why your ass keep voting with them? That don't even make sense. Like, I feel like I'm crazy. Like,
No, you're absolutely true, and that's why we have the thing for the people that voted for Trump. We say, yeah, this is what I voted for, because whether you like it or not, meaning other people,
mm-hmm,
I got what I voted for. If he said he was going to do the biggest mass deportation, and he does it,
mm-hmm,
whether you like it or not, that's a politician doing what I asked, right?
mm-hmm,
And so all the time, I really do think that women, we're not actually getting ahead. We're just
Mm.
ahead of certain men.
Mhm.
And by, us having that little bit, just that little bit that we can brag about, we're satisfied with that. As long as we're doing better than you, but you're actually not doing any better, because when the government shut down, or
Mm.
when, COVID happened, you
Mm.
saw a lot of this wasn't able, a lot of women couldn't sustain. A lot of women could not keep up with the mortgages. They're being priced out of this. They can't fix the houses. They wouldn't bought these big houses, but have nobody to fix them. So now they're, going into debt trying to keep the house up.
Mhm.
When times get hard and nobody is there to actually give you a cushion or a subsidy,
Yep.
you really find out that you, all along, you weren't winning.
And not only are they tricked into thinking that they're further along than they actually are, especially when they're so dependent on these systems and these models.
Mhm.
My view, and I keep bringing it back to men because at the end of the day, I actually think it's the revolution, if there ever is going to be one, it's not going to be based on women in mass changing their minds. Sorry,
No,
I don't
no.
believe that. I think the best way I can argue it from a why at minimum people need to be, especially men need to be independent, registered and thinkers and voters is this. Imagine going into a store and you have your money in hand and you go into the store to purchase a particular item. You go there day one, they tell you we ain't got it. You say, all right, well, I'm gonna come back. You come back day number two. You ask for the item. They say we don't have it in stock. Day number three, you need it. You know you need to walk out with it, and they say they ain't got it again, and you give them the money anyway and walk out with nothing. That's what being a man in 2024, 2025, while voting for a party that gives you nothing, that's what it
Yeah.
looks like. Your ass is going into a store, expecting something, getting nothing, and still giving them the thing they want and walking out with nothing you want.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I'll say this.
Mm.
I do honestly think that most of the men
Mm-hmm.
and women, because I'm one of them that voted for Donald Trump,
Mm-hmm.
didn't vote for the Republican Party. They
No,
voted for the populist ideas that Donald Trump has.
voted for populism. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're going to see what you're talking about when Donald Trump has to leave office.
Oh
You're going
yeah.
you're,
It's
you're going to see, now you're going to see that split,
yep.
because men, and mark my word, we can come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to say, "What are you giving me? What are you giving me? And what are you giving me?" And
Yes.
it's going to be not just the old ones, but the young ones, because
Mhm.
they're also tired.
And guess what? If the Republicans start doing to men like they did this most recently, they went to all the Manosphere podcasts. They were talking to men. They were engaging with men. They were at least acknowledging that men existed. That's cool and all. But if you start treating men the way that the liberals treat the black community, they're gonna wake up real time. Unlike the black community, a lot of men are gonna be like, "Well, what the f are you going to do?"
Mhm.
Because what I'm seeing from MAGA is they're actually in mass making demands in real time whenever they see
Absolutely.
regressions on promises that were made. They said,
Absolutely.
"We're not going to let this Epstein thing go." Now it is brought to the floor. They're doing a thing. They're constantly talking about American first, America first, America first, and they're not letting up even after Charlie Kirk passed. So if
Absolutely.
you think you can take this demographic of men and treat them the way you treat this passive group, i.e., the black community specifically, they're not going to do another 3, 4 election cycles, and you're not
Absolutely.
delivering on tangible goods of what men are stating. The only difference is men are still individuals right now of how they think about this stuff, and they actually have to have an agenda of 5 to 8 to 10 things that they demand. And if you can get 20 to 40% of those things in one election cycle, it's life changing. And the
Yeah.
crazy part is, much of the things that men are even demanding is literally just about being treated equally and fairly.
Absolutely,
They're
absolutely.
saying we want automatic 50-50 custody. We want to ensure that the child that we're paying for and maybe being beholden to child support payments is actually our child. We want people who do paternity fraud to get prosecuted. We want people that do false allegations to be prosecuted, and we want it to be treated fairly and equally. That's it. Like that's what men want.
What the equality that everybody said they wanted.
That's it.
Okay, and go ahead and throw in no fault
Oh
divorces to
yeah.
be taken
Nope.
out because
Um.
that's a
Yeah.
big wealth transfer.
I'll say this about that. I would never fully get rid of it, but I would have caveats with it. People who put down what's the one of the primary what's the
Oh,
main reason?
the irreconcilable
Irreconcilable
some
differences.
yeah, uh-huh.
If it's for irreconcilable differences, if you have a BS reason for why you need to leave, you leave with what you came in with.
And
Mm,
that I can make a compromise on because I just I see the wealth transfer like I'm just going to leave. Like, well, what happened?
mhm.
I woke
It was
up.
a Tuesday. I felt differently. He don't make me happy anymore. Fine. You get to leave
Yeah.
and he
Well,
doesn't have to
mhm.
subsidize your lifestyle going forward. These are things that are actually fair. And the
Yeah.
crazy part is the ladies agree whenever they see a woman in the news that has to pay alimony, that has to pay
Yeah.
money. They're like, "Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's so disgusting."
When they saw Mary J, they said, can we change that law?
Halle Berry, all of it, right? So they get and know that it's unfair. They just recognize and are fine with it staying the same if it's a benefit to women. So we have to stop waiting for women to vote for things. Tommy Sotomayor said it. We got to stop waiting for women in mass to want to see and recognize the full humanity of men. Most of them don't want it. They want it to stay exactly how it is. They want the perks and privileges and they want the advantages, but they want to convince you that it's equal and that it's a form of equality. So if you keep siding with these women, you keep sleeping with these women, you keep doing life with these women, that's probably why your communities and your lives look the way that it does. So that's me.
Absolutely. The moment you change and say no,
Mm,
their behavior change. I tell women that the
mm,
reason why he treats you like you do is because he know he can do it.
bam,
They're only
bam.
gonna do what you allow.
Yeah.
So I wanna thank you, Jeff. I wanna be respectful of your time, but I'm telling you, I could probably sit here another hour or so just talking.
We got
But
good listen, we got good symmetry when it comes to these type of convos. It's very natural,
yeah,
organic. You know, you have your opinions, I
absolutely.
have mines, and
Yeah.
I love the fact that more people like you are in this space. You got to do more of these interviews. You
Yeah,
definitely got to
I'll
do it for
start.
sure.
Imma start. I definitely I like it. I like hearing other people's ideas. And
Mm,
sometimes, it sparks something that I didn't even think about. Sometimes I just still don't, don't agree, but
mhm.
I love to hear other people's point of view. And so I'm definitely gonna do that. So and you've inspired me because I've been ever since I've been subscribed now.
Mhm, mhm.
I see this interview. I'm like, hold up, I didn't finish the other one yet. Let me like you're on it. So
Hey,
it's definitely
listen,
it's definitely good work.
your boy Anton set the tone, so I got work to
Yep.
do because
Yep.
he
Yep.
grinding and he set the tone of there's a way to or go about it, and you gotta work harder than the other people around you that only talk about what you're doing wrong.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you being here. I just want to say this last super chat because we were in deep discussion, so I didn't get to say it. Lee Turner with the $2 super chat. Thank you so much. First time, Mika. Dope. I appreciate you listening today. Thank you. Jeff, as always, you can come anytime when you're not, driving 2 hours each way at your own private practice with the 1-year old and not doing your interviews, which I think is awesome. Like,
Hey,
it's
I
awesome.
appreciate it. Thank you so much for welcoming me into your space and to your audience. For those that don't know, I mean, it literally, I think it shows it on the screen. The name is Jeff St. James. The podcast is Ask a Brother Podcast. If you are currently watching this and you have not liked this video, please make sure that you do. Please subscribe to Red Talk and to Pop Culture Mika for sure. She's a good person, authentic person. She's not a grifter. I can vouch for her. What
Absolutely.
she says is what she genuinely believes, and I think that if we get in the habit of supporting more people who's more level headed, whether they're on the right, on the left, whether they're liberal, whether they're conservative, and even independent, I think that we can now establish normalizing this being more what people are tuning into versus just the ratchet hood, ridiculous stuff on the internet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Again, check out Jeff's channel, Ask a Brother Podcast. And until next time, it's your girl Mika, and I'm out. Peace.